Well, guys, it looks like we are done waiting. Everybody, frankly, has been done waiting for a while now. For the Epstein files, for answers on who this unbelievably, mysteriously rich and powerful, overly connected billionaire, who he was associated with, and who was employing his services. And in that time, we have had to think and theorize and wonder who is on the list. We've had to cross-reference things like photos of Epstein with friends of his and with other celebrities, as well as like who they're friends with. We've had to go off of some testimony that's come out, but a lot of it's not really been made public yet. There's been rumors, and frankly, the internet's been basically given a completely open field with which to make whatever narrative they want to out of this whole situation, because we've been left with so few concrete answers. Though it does seem like we are going to be getting answers soon, because the Epstein victims themselves are fed up with waiting for justice. They are fed up with waiting for the Trump administration to release the identities of the people Epstein was working with and helping to be a predator against children. And so they came forward just yesterday. They were out on the Capitol steps here in America, speaking into like 500 microphones, giving an address to the press. And ever since, several other alleged Epstein victims have come out to basically say that they are going to be putting together their own Epstein client list. That if we're not going to get our answers from the government, we're at least going to get our answers from them. Unironically, Marjorie Taylor Greene is siding with the Epstein victims. Honestly, it's not that surprising. Marjorie Taylor Greene is too stupid and crazy to be a grifter in the traditional sense, that she doesn't buy into all of it. Like, she is a genuine, like, massive stick up her ass, super right-wing, insane, conservative soccer mom. That doesn't mean she's necessarily in favor of predators. Like she might actually buy the insane narrative that trans people are predators, hook, line, and sinker. And so obviously she still doesn't like Epstein because Epstein's also a predator, right? Just because she's crazy and awful doesn't mean she's not genuine. The fact that she's genuine seems to be more likely at this point based on who she's siding with here. But let's go ahead and take a look at this news segment here of the Epstein victims coming forward to speak. I actually have not watched this yet, though I have watched what I'm going to be showing you guys next, which will be some pretty valuable extra context to the situation. Let's hop right in.
Good morning. My name is Anushka DeGiorgio, and I stand before you today as a survivor of both Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. I want to thank Congressman Massey and Khanna for their role in putting together this very, very important bill. Every day of this journey toward healing has come at a profound cost to my mental health. But
That's right, guys. We're getting the Epstein files. If this bill passes, we get a full-on probe into Epstein and everything the government found out about him, and presumably a full disclosure of all the information they found, all the evidence, including the client list. If it better have bipartisan support, or there are going to be some career endings within politics to anybody who votes no on this bill. Like, it is the ultimate, will you accept the files be released or no? Yes or no, vote yay or nay. If you vote nay and say don't release the files, you look so sus right now.
I am here. I chose to come because this bill really matters. I speak today not only in service of my own recovery from trauma inflicted by Maxwell and Epstein, but to honor the lives, the courage and sacrifices of Virginia Giuffre, Caroline Andriano, and others who could not continue. Their voices mattered. Their stories must not be forgotten. Accountability is what makes a society civilized. Equal opportunity and equal consequence for all. Consequences are not about punishment alone, They exist to deter future harm, to protect vulnerable, and to set a standard of justice. If Ghislaine Maxwell were pardoned, it would undermine all the sacrifices I made to testify and make mockery of mine and all survivors' suffering.
I really hope Americans are not blind enough to miss what is happening right in front of them here. That Donald Trump is buddying up with Ghislaine Maxwell, the convicted child predator and bottom bitch of Epstein's sex trafficking empire, and he's buddying up with her, offering her better treatment, potentially a lighter sentence, maybe a pardon based on rumors that have been bouncing around. Meanwhile, he refuses to release the Epstein files like he promised he would. I hope Americans are not too blind to see what is clearly going on in front of them.
That is why the Epstein Files Transparency Act is so essential. It requires the Department of Justice release all the records related to Epstein and Maxwell investigations, flight logs, immunity deals, internal communications, and even the records surrounding Epstein's detention and death. And crucially, it forbids withholding documents simply because of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. This is about ending secrecy wherever abuse of power takes root. But transparency alone is not enough. Survivors need protection, resources, and legal support. If this Congress is serious about justice, then let this moment also affirm your commitment to provide victims with the legal aid they need to confront abusers, to navigate complex systems, and to reclaim their power. Transparency must be matched by support, or else too many victims will remain silent out of fear and lack of access. The statistics demand action. Nearly 1 in 5 women in America will experience rape or attempted rape in her lifetime.
Chuds hate when you bring up that statistic, unless you're talking about immigrants. Interesting, that.
Every 74 seconds, someone is sexually assaulted. Every 9 minutes, that person is a child. These are not numbers, they are people. They are your daughters, your sons, your constituents, your friends. Statistically, 1 in 5 of your families will face this nightmare. The days of sweeping this under the rug are over. We, the survivors, say no more. I want to help create a world where survivors of sexual abuse and abuse of power can come forward safely. And I ask Congress to join me in that effort, not only by passing this bill, but by ensuring that those who step forward have legal support to face their abusers and see justice done. When Judge Berman gave Epstein survivors the chance to finally speak, the world listened. After so many years, survivors were heard. That moment was historic, and so is this moment. For me, the turning point was when I had my daughter, and on the day she was born, I knew I had a responsibility to protect her and to protect all children. I have to use my voice, the voice that had been silenced by fear and shame for so many years. Make no mistake, my polished exterior is a shield hiding a wound that still bleeds. But through this wound, I have found purpose. To be part of lasting change in how we confront exploitation and abuse. And to be clear, the only motive for opposing this bill would be to conceal wrongdoing. You have a choice. Stand with the truth, or with the lies that have protected predators for decades.
Remember, Trump and his Republican administration have been desperately trying to cover up their involvement, the vast Republican involvement with Epstein. In fact, it just came out today, if I'm not mistaken. As much as I do not want to interrupt this testimony, it is also important to remember that as she talks about exposing the corruption and the abuses of power and the abuses of people from people of power with power. As she discusses that, we apparently just got leaks of Trump's DOJ admitting to covering up his involvement with Epstein on Hot Mic.
All right, we have a wild.
So here's an Adam Mockler segment that I was actually sent about exactly this. So if we were going to get any Epstein files from the Trump administration, it was going to be specifically redacted such that not just Trump, but all Republicans would be cut out, meaning it would just basically be filled with a bunch of celebrities and progressive politicians, which is exactly what Trump would want to have go out, right? No conservative would ever accept that there were more names on there, right? So let's go ahead and see what Trump's DOJ has been talking about.
Wild story breaking out of the Department of Justice. A top official at the DOJ was caught on a secret recording, essentially admitting that they are going to censor any Republicans in the Epstein files while placing emphasis on any Democratic politicians or more left-leaning names. Now, this story was quite hard to report at first because it was coming from James O'Keefe. James O'Keefe runs something called Project Veritas, which is a right-wing
very, very unreliable source in general. But if they can find a real story that's a game changer, you better believe they'll take it. They'll take anything they can.
Organization with a very, very sketchy past. So when he released this video, he said, breaking, DOJ deputy chief admits government will, quote, redact every Republican while, quote, leaving all the liberal Democratic people on the Epstein client list. And then says, Ghislaine Maxwell was moved to a lower security prison as, quote, a benefit to keep her mouth shut. I'll play this clip in just 1 second, but I wonder.
Since when is Project Veritas doing anti-Trump content? Like, okay, all right. I don't know what happened, but okay, sure. Whatever happened behind the scenes to make them go anti-Trump, I guess. Unless they just found a real story and they're like, I guess they found a real story. And so now they're like, okay, let's report on it because this shit's real, even though it's not necessarily their side of things. But they have a story they can actually break, so they're taking the opportunity. Maybe they're like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Maybe, yeah, they could be Marjorie Taylor Greene conservatives. Like, more insane than Trump. Like true believers in like the nonsense, the bullshit that Trump spewed down their ears.
I want to contextualize it all because James O'Keefe is not a trustworthy source of information. Just point blank, he is not a trustworthy source of information. He has gotten sued into hell and ruined so many lives for straight up running scams. Back in 2009, there was something called Acorn. Acorn helped lower income individuals, often black communities, with voter registration, with housing, with all of this. It was a great organization that did a lot of great work. James O'Keefe deceptively edited videos of Acorn workers. He deceptively edited videos, scammed them. He ruined the lives and reputations of many workers who ended up getting hundreds of thousands of dollars in settlement. It was all awful. The fact that this man has a career is terrible. So I didn't know if I wanted to report on this video that released just a few hours ago, just this morning, until the Department of Justice responded to it on Twitter. And this is the double-edged sword of having an administration that is super on social media. I mean, it's not really double.
That's kind of crazy they put out a response to a Project Veritas article. Like, that low-key makes me think they okay, alright, hold on. The Department of Justice responded to the Project Veritas article? Okay, they might be onto something, guys. They might be onto something. That is fishy. That is really fishy that they bothered to respond at all.
Double-edged sword. It's all bad. But sometimes when we have officials like Governor Gavin Newsom, or AOC is really good at this, playing the digital game, it's really good to provide transparency to the people in that regard. But when you have somebody running the Department of Justice account tweeting this, just like you have RFK Jr. tweeting wild shit over at the HHS, like who's running these accounts? The person who's running the U.S. Department of Justice Twitter account responded with a screenshot to James O'Keefe. So they responded to the James O'Keefe video that I was just showing you guys. And in this response, there's an email coming from the man in the video, Joseph Schnitt. This email does not deny a single thing that was said. So when Joseph Schnitt claims in this video that I'm right about to play that Maxwell got transferred, that all of this happened, the DOJ comes out and doesn't deny it. I'm going to play this all for you. Let's just
Okay.
start from the beginning.
But those files do exist.
Yeah, thousands and thousands of pages of files. They'll redact every Republican or conservative person in those files, leave all the liberal, Democratic people in those files.
I think they visited that Maxwell.
Isn't it crazy how we've like all known that's the plan from the start? Like, if they are going to be like strong-armed into releasing the files, they will purge every conservative, especially Trump, out of the mentions of it, and just try to turn it into a nuke they can drop on the left. Like, we all knew they were going to do this. Mind you, the files would be like 75% smaller if they cut out every conservative and left only the liberals, but regardless, like, it's... When you hear it out loud, that that is what they were planning to do, to turn their pedophilia into a nuke that they could hit the left with, it's especially disgusting. We truly are up against more creatures that are more evil than demons. Calling them demons, I feel, defies reality. It defies accuracy. They're too evil to be described that way.
Person.
Yeah.
And also involved.
Got transferred to a minimum security prison too recently, which is against BOP policy because she's a convicted sex offender. They're offering her something, keep it shut.
That was the acting deputy chief of the Office of Enforcement Operations, Joseph Schnitt, telling a stranger about the FBI and DOJ's handling of the Epstein files. Schnitt, who works at a high level inside the Department of Justice, goes on to comment on the inconsistent statements, special treatment of Ghislaine Maxwell, and the blatant backtracking on promises of transparency.
And what do you do for work again?
I work for the Department of Justice.
Okay.
Been there like 23 years.
Bro's on a date, getting recorded. I don't think he knows.
I'm an analyst. I'll be acting deputy chief of our office for a few months starting next week. I work closely with like all the federal law enforcement agencies, the U.S. attorney's offices, the prosecutors and stuff.
Dude, you can tell this guy will like leak all of America's most valuable secrets if he thinks a chick's gonna blow him. Holy fuck.
Because it's interesting because I do deal with so many agencies, like the Bureau of Prisons, the Marshal Service, the FBI, U.S. attorney's offices.
Recently, the FBI and DOJ have come under fire for promising transparency, then refusing to release footage and unredacted documents, going directly against the public's expectations and the promises made by Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel. In a DOJ press release, Attorney General Pam Bondi stated, quote, "This Department of Justice is following through on President Trump's commitment to transparency and lifting the veil on the disgusting actions of Jeffrey Epstein."
Let me just point out, James O'Keefe was subsequently shredded by Republicans over the past few hours. Now, I don't even want to play his monologue because I find him to be...
They betrayed him. James O'Keefe, hardcore Republican journalist, has literally played a big part in pushing the narrative that mail-in ballots are an invalid way to engage in voting, that they are falsely claiming that they are super-duper vulnerable to voter fraud. This guy pushed all the right-wing narratives. This guy has been on the Trump train since the start. And now they're trying to put him through the wood chipper. They're trying to destroy his career over exposing this because they got access to exclusive footage of a high-ranking DOJ, Trump DOJ official saying, yeah, they got thousands of documents. They plan to basically purge every Republican's name out of there before they release them. So yeah, just to be very clear, if this measure does not succeed, if these victims are not able to come forward with their client list, with their Epstein client list, then we get the Republican Party's Epstein client list, the one that we just heard they're planning to release, the Trump DOJ, the one that will just be turned into a massive political attack on the Democrats, not mentioning a single Republican. So we got to get these files out, because it's not just going to end up no longer being an attack on Trump or a good way to expose Trump for what he is. It's going to be something that actually hurts the Democrats more if they're the ones who release it in the way they want to release it. It's all going to come out unredacted.
I am no longer weak. I am no longer powerless. And I'm no longer alone. And with your vote, neither will the next generation be. President Trump, you have so much influence and power in this situation. Please use that influence and power to help us, because we need it now and this country needs it now. Thank you.
That was the first of the victims who came up to speak.
Hello. My name is Annie Farmer, and I was 16 years old when I was flown to New Mexico to spend a weekend with Epstein and Maxwell. That same year, 1996, my sister, Maria Farmer, reported what happened to me there, along with reporting her own assault at their hands and their theft of sensitive photos of herself, of me, and our younger sister that she had taken for her work as a figurative painter. I am now 46 years old. 30 years later, we still do not know why that report wasn't properly investigated, or why Epstein and his associates were allowed to harm.
That's Marjorie Taylor Greene right there, standing in support of the victims in the background. Also, this story is kind of a conspiracy theorist's wet dream, because, like, there's so much shady shit about everything to do with this. She's kind of hitting the nail on the head right now. Epstein went to court over his history, which back in 2005 was already a history of inappropriate sexual contact with minors, being a predator. He went to court over this in 2005 in Florida, and the charges were dropped and he was let free. Since, there have been dozens of reports, police reports made on Epstein, that never got followed up. Just like the one that she's talking about, never got followed up on. There was no investigation. And then on top of all of that, Epstein's wealth itself is a mystery. Epstein is a wealthy guy, but according to his story, he was not born into a wealthy family. He did not inherit his wealth. He made it through the stock market, which was the number one thing supposedly rich people went to him for, was stock trading advice. And, you know, he was just a big wealthy guy who'd done really well with the stock market. So if you're a rich guy who deals with stock stuff, maybe you want to have him on your, you know, on your speed dial, right? And that's what he was meant to look like from the outside looking in. But some of the most experienced and notorious, like known, even infamous stock trading people, you know, like I'm talking like your Rockefellers and stuff like that. They absolutely cannot find any history or anywhere in the history of the entire U.S. stock exchange any point in which the kind of volume was being moved that would have needed to be moved for him to make that kind of money. Because, like, you can see ripples created in the market even years later, going back and looking. If someone at a certain time went from being, like, broke as fuck to a multi-billionaire off of the stock market. Like, that's a big deal. That is a massive exchanging of hands for wealth when it comes to shares. Like, you're going to see some big buys and some big sells when someone becomes a billionaire off of stock trading. And yet, absolutely nobody can correlate any historical New York Stock Exchange behavior to Epstein's gain in wealth. As far as we know, Epstein, his wealth just appeared out of thin air. This is pre-crypto days, so even at the tip of the tech bubble, it didn't add up. It's especially weird back then compared to now. People get really rich all the time through, like, crypto pump and dumps now, fair. But back then, that kind of stuff wasn't really a thing. Like, the market was also a lot more, you know, normal. It didn't tend to move up and down in massive spikes like it often does today under Trump with the insane market we're in right now. So, like, Epstein just, there was no big, like, bubble inflation going on at the time within the market for Epstein to get onto early and make that money off of it. Just doesn't make any sense how he could have gotten that rich in that time. So there's a lot of fishy stuff to do with Epstein and how a lot of reports were never looked into. He had an entire trial in 2005 where every charge was dropped and he was free to go. You know, we don't know how he got so rich. We don't know how he got all the connections that he got. It's really, really weird. And he's dead, so we can't ask him.
Harm hundreds, if not thousands, of other girls and young women. We have never been told whether those images were found when they discovered a large amount of child sexual abuse material on his property. As a psychologist, I understand that when the systems meant to protect us recreate the abuse cycle, the betrayal that occurs can be just as damaging as the original trauma. This happens when survivors of these crimes are not believed, when our well-being is not weighed as heavily as those who have more resources or more privilege, and when perpetrators of these crimes are given a platform rather than the survivors of them. For so many years, it felt like Epstein's criminal behavior was an open secret. Not only did many others participate in the abuse, it is clear that many were aware of his interest in girls and very young women and chose to look the other way because it benefited them to do so. They wanted access to his circle and his money. Their choice to align with his power left those of us who had been harmed by this man and his associates feeling very isolated. I could never have imagined being here today and this chorus of support that we have all received. I have been sent so many notes and messages from people with no direct connection to this case who've expressed their solidarity with us. And I believe that is because, in part, as Anushka explained so well, this is an extremely widespread issue of child sexual abuse, of sexual exploitation, of sexual violence. This affects almost every family in some way. From my conversations with women in these last few days and from all of the support that we've received, it's very clear to me that we are not going away, we are not going to be quiet, and we are not going to give up. And I ask the American public to stand with us.
Remember, several of Epstein's victims have died, okay? Like, it's been decades that Epstein got away with this shit until he ended up in prison, and then he died not too long after. So, for the most part, it's been decades of there being no justice. These are people who have had to sit on this trauma and deal with it with no justice even being seeked out for literal decades, you know? These are women who were victimized when they were like 14, 15, 16, and the majority of them are in their 40s, some of them in their 50s now. It's been a while, dude. It's been a while that Epstein's gotten away with this shit. He got away with it for a real long time. And now it's not just Epstein and Ghislaine, it's all the people that he worked with. All of his clients. And God knows how many more victims we don't even know the names of. Like, that's a big thing. Like, you got to imagine, like, how many victims do we not know that haven't gone public, that never even went to the police because they can't bring themselves to get involved because it's just so traumatic for them? It could be dozens, even hundreds.
And not give up. At a time with record high levels of distrust in our institutions and a perception that there are two Americas, one for those with power and privilege and one for everyone else, passing this Epstein transparency bill is one important step that can be taken to prove to Americans that the government does not side with sexual perpetrators. A thorough public review of this information is an important step in preventing the type of systemic failures that have occurred in this case and harmed all of us. An important step towards healing.
Isn't it crazy how this is somehow the least monstrous that Marjorie Taylor Greene has ever looked, by the way? Like, look at Marjorie Taylor Greene here. Like, yeah, she's kind of making a face. Like, she doesn't look like a monster here because she's actually showing genuine concern and is, like, standing on the, like, right side of an issue. Like, it's kind of wild how not being a piece of shit can, like, instantly improve someone's appearance and their vibe, you know what I mean? Like, she just instantly doesn't look monstrous just by not being a piece of shit here. Amazing stuff. The secret that beauticians don't want to tell you.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to say thank you, everyone, for being here today on this very powerful and special day for all of us here. My name is Marina Lacerda. I was minor victim 1 in federal indictment of Jeffrey Epstein in New York in 2019. I was one of dozens of girls that I personally know who were forced into Jeffrey's mansion on 9 East 71 Street in New York City when we were just kids. Today is the first time that I ever speak publicly about what happened to me. I never thought that I would find myself here. The only reason that I am here is because it feels like the people who matter in this country finally care about what we have to say. As an immigrant from Brazil, I feel empowered knowing that the little girl struggling to get by at 14 and 15 years old finally has a voice. For the first time, I feel like I matter as an American. I was only 14 years old when I met Jeffrey. It was the summer of high school. I was working 3 jobs to try to support my mom and my sister when a friend...
Something I've found is that pretty consistently Epstein was hiring these women when they were teenage girls, just trying to get like some work, make a bit of money. Some of them were in rough life circumstances and really needed the money. And he would offer them jobs at, you know, high-end Florida resort properties, you know? And it's like, yeah, I'll work as like a server or like a pool delivery food person at a beautiful Florida resort, or I'll deliver towels at a beautiful... Yeah, of course I'll take that job. Yeah, that sounds like the perfect job. Like, yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, of course. And then they ended up basically getting into a situation where naturally their job kinda low-key relied on not holding up their boundaries when around their employer, Epstein. And that's how he groomed them and eventually assaulted them. He put them into, he coerced them into an employee-employer relationship and then used that employee-employer position to pressure them out of pure, like, largely through financial pressure, and fear of losing a great job when you're a teenager and you think losing a job is the end of the world, pressured them into being victims of sex trafficking. It's disgusting, really disgusting stuff. And then when you find out that some of these women, particularly Virginia Giuffre, worked for Trump as an underage girl at his Mar-a-Lago resort doing God knows what job, it's like, So Epstein was going to Trump's resort and poaching underage girl employees that he then sex trafficked? Like, Epstein's obviously the one we know is up to some sus shit here, but what the fuck was Trump doing is what most people who have followed these testimonies have pulled from it. Like, why did Trump have 16-year-old girls working for him that Epstein then poached and hired and then coerced through that hiring relationship into being sex trafficked? It's a worthwhile question.
A friend of mine in the neighborhood told me that I could make $300 to give an older guy a massage. It went from a dream job to the worst nightmare. Jeffrey assistant Leslie Groff would call me and tell me...
Like I said, I've not watched this. I've not heard any of this. Hey, Kionist. I've not watched or heard any of this myself. It's pretty straightforward. Creepy old man offers money to teenager who's naive and wants a job so they can make some money, and it ends up being a way to victimize. It's not the craziest leap.
That I needed to be at the house so often that I ended up dropping out of high school before 9th grade. And I never went back. From 14 to 17 years old, I went and worked for Jeffrey instead of receiving an education. Every day I hoped that he would offer me a real job as one of his assistants or something important. I would finally have made it big, as, like we say, the American dream. That day never came. I had no way out. I was, until he finally told me that I was too old. There are many pieces of my story that I can't remember, no matter how hard I try. The constant state of wonder.
Bro, please watch the video circulating of the DOJ official admitting to covering for Trump and Republicans in the Epstein files. The Shore, you'll be happy to know that about 10 minutes ago, probably shortly before you arrived, I already did part of this whole segment. When we watched the first testimony, then we watched that clip, and then we switched back to this to resume the testimony. So you'll be happy to know I already did, my friend. I'm already ahead of you on that one.
Causes me so much fear and so much.
Yeah, literally the Maren Trant too old scene from Game of Thrones. Yeah, no, like actually, if you've seen Game of Thrones, it's that scene in Bravos where Arya goes in to kill Maren Trant, and he's at the brothel, and they're bringing out like this line of women, and they bring out the first woman, and he's like too old, and she's like, oh, okay. Bring out the next woman. She's like 28 or 26 or something. And he's like, too old. She's like, okay. Bring out the next girl, and she's like 19 or 18. And he's like, too old. And the brothel owner's like, yeah. Literally that. Literally Epstein.
Confusion. My therapist says that my brain is just trying to protect itself. But it's so hard to begin to heal knowing that there are people out there who know more about my abuse than I do. The worst part is that the government is...
The DOJ knows. The Department of Justice 100% knows, and it has, according to that higher-up DOJ official that we were talking about before, thousands of pages of documents on Epstein and his victims.
Still in possession right now of the documents and information about that could help me remember and get over all of this maybe and help me heal. They have documents with my name on them that were confiscated from Jeffrey Epstein's house and could help me put the pieces of my own life back together. But I don't have any of it. And I know the same is true for many of these women. We are here to support this bill today, not only for transparency, but for the American people. But if the government is going to release these documents to the public...
Like, this has got to be unbelievably difficult to do. Like, I know everyone says this, but really think about it, the bravery to this, to have had something so violating done to you. And, you know, most people would want the worst thing that ever happened to them to be a long, distant, forgotten memory, maybe just like a nightmare they had once in the back of their mind. But these women are having to come, not just to the public coming forward with it, but they have to, you know, bring it all back up, and they have to talk about it in the capital of the most powerful, important nation on the planet, in the capital of said country, in front of 1 million news cameras, like 1,000 microphones, and at least half of the country, probably more, and not an insignificant percentage of the rest of the world watching. Your worst experience is being broadcast, in a sense, to the world from the largest platform that could theoretically exist in the world. And you're the one who has to expose it to people in order to seek out justice, because the institutions that exist, whose job it is to seek justice for you, you have to do it yourself. Because here's the reality of it. The little girl she used to be, her child self, she feels that she owes that child version of herself justice, that she has to at least do something, that it seems at this point she's got to take it into her hands to some extent if there's ever going to be justice for her younger self. Because she considers that she owes herself that, and she owes every other child that could be victimized in such a way that. That has been like the running theme with all of these Epstein victims, and the fact that instead of just releasing the files, they've held on to it so they can edit and redact them and force these victims to come forward and speak in front of the country is so disgusting to me. Like, the bravery they're displaying is amazing, don't get me wrong, but the fact they've had to display any of it in the first place is disgusting, because it shows that our institutions are, at best, not working as they're supposed to. At worst, protecting predators.
Describing the crimes committed by Jeffrey Epstein and others, the least that they can do is give me my documents that they have about me. The other survivors deserve the same respect from our government. While our identifying information must be redacted to the public, it is equally important to provide the victims themselves with unredacted information. I will never forget when the FBI agent showed up in my door in 2008. Jeffrey Epstein hired a lawyer to represent me, or more like to represent him, I like to say. I couldn't ask any questions, and I had no idea what was going on. I was terrified. Until today, I think most of us are still terrified. I thought somebody was going to kill me. I thought something was going to happen to my sister or my mother. It went further out to even maybe thinking something would happen in Brazil with my family. And then one day, the lawyer said that everything was just going to go away. Like nothing happened. I didn't need to testify. When I asked him why, he gave no explanation.
What the fuck is going on? Why were the charges in 2005 dropped? Why have so many of the reports on Jeffrey Epstein's child predation gone uninvestigated? Why did these charges get dropped with the lawyer saying, don't worry about it? When she asked why and what happened, there has been some weird shit going on behind the scenes. Like, judges getting letters from high up government officials telling them, drop this case. Now, take this with a grain of salt, but this has been a rumor that has been bouncing around for a while now, that in the 2005 Florida child sex trafficking case, Jeffrey Epstein was obviously being charged with what he is notoriously guilty with, and the charges were dropped by the judge. Apparently, the prosecutor in that case was approached by a high-ranking government official and was told to stop pushing for prosecution on Epstein because Epstein is, I believe the quote was, because I want to try to get it verbatim, Epstein is involved with national intelligence, was what they said. Allegedly. This is the rumor that's been going around. The most popular theory about Epstein is that he was essentially a American or Israeli, potentially, national intelligence honeypot. That he was a wealthy, powerful guy who would sex traffic kids in order to attract powerful, creepy, wealthy old men globally, get dirt on them, in some cases maybe just get dirt on them fucking children, and just the US government would just have access to that blackmail information should they need it. That has been a largely theorized use that Epstein might have had. Like, no one knows how he got so rich or how he got so connected. So a lot of people are assuming, like, maybe the government created Epstein, like, made him this cushy, rich, supposed, like, stock trading genius, gave him everything he would need to, like, get real close with powerful rich people, allowed him to get away with sex trafficking children so that the wealthy, powerful, in many cases, foreign world leaders and whatnot that he would be, you know, I guess, doing business with, that information, those files, I mean, the government had them one way or another. And it's very possible that our intelligence agencies were using that stuff. And that was his whole purpose. It's because Ghislaine's dad, he was involved in the CIA, Mossad, the KGB, and a few other intelligence agencies. I had no idea about any of that. I've never even heard that detail in any of these conspiracies. That's new.
That was it. So why? Why was I never called to testify then? We could have saved so many women. We could have saved so many lives from being abused. Why did he get away with it in 2008? Why was he able to go on in the abuse with hundreds of girls after the Florida investigation? Why didn't they let me testify to help stop him? Our government
could have
saved so many women, but Jeffrey Epstein was too important and those women didn't matter. Why?
I agree. Why?
Well, we matter now. We are here today, and we are speaking, and we are not going to stop speaking. Today, I stand here with the women who have really helped me to find the strength to come out and come forward to share my story for the very first time. Together, we are stronger than ever. While she may not be with us, Virginia Roberts, we will continue to use our voices to strengthen yours always. Thank you.
Now, this goes on for a while longer, and several other Epstein victims come forward to speak, but unfortunately, this is going on quite long, this segment, so I do have to cut it around here, but I do highly recommend, if you enjoyed this segment, you leave a like and a comment. I think it matters for this segment more than ever, because one thing I've noticed, and, you know, trust, the channel's been doing really great lately. I want to thank you all for the boost in channel performance we've seen due to your engagement, that you guys have increased so much, but most of my content's doing really well right now, actually. Except for one topic. When I cover this one topic, compared to all other content that I've recently uploaded on my channel, it bombs in the algorithm. And according to many of you guys, when I mention I've made these videos, they say, I didn't know you were making videos on this topic. I'll have to go look on your channel. And that would be Epstein content. Any content that has to do with this Epstein story that I have uploaded underperforms the average video on my channel several magnitudes, like massive underperformance, which suggests to me that, at least in my case, Epstein-related content has been shadow banned as fuck. I've noticed on Instagram my Epstein comments get hidden as well. Yeah, so this video is almost certainly going to be shadow banned, heavily suppressed, and deboosted in the algorithm. It will likely not even get shown to the majority of my subscribers, if YouTube has its say. So try to increase the likes and comments in this video. Maybe we can try to break it out of algorithm hell and whatever shadow banning system they decide to put on it. I do think this story is too important to allow YouTube to get away with suppressing. So, you know, keep dropping the likes and comments. I really appreciate it. Subscribe and ring the bell icon if you haven't already, so that YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload new videos in the future. And of course, if you want to see more from me on other platforms, be sure to follow my social medias linked down below, particularly my fan Discord, as that is the main hub of my fan base and community. On top of that, that's where I host weekly watch parties, call-in streams, and movie nights every week, so if you don't want to miss anything, make sure to join. And of course, if you want to support me directly, financially, help me keep the lights on, and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some custom Xander Hall merch through the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me though, thank you all so much for watching, as always, and have a good one.